I never thought a weekend in the woods could feel like the turning point of my entire life, but here I am, heart thrumming against my ribs as dawn tiptoes through the pines. I should be excited about the ecology field trip, measuring soil acidity, cataloging moss species, pretending to focus on lichens instead of the way he tucks a stray lock of hair behind his ear. But there's a twist this time. Something in the autumn chill tells me everything's about to change. My name is Sam, bookish, quiet, with a stubborn fondness for thrift shop flannels and vintage field guides. I grew up drawing ferns in the margins of math homework, finding comfort in the predictable curves of their fronds. Nature has always felt safe, orderly, impartial. People not so much. Except for Alex. He's the exception. Smart, impulsive, the kind of guy who laughs with his whole body and drags me into adventures I'd never plan on my own. We've been friends since freshman year, a partnership born over a shared lab partner mishap and cemented by countless late-night study sessions, pizza boxes, and inside jokes that still make my stomach flip. We're not just classmates, we're co-conspirators on every camping trip, every river cleanup, every midnight stargaze where we compare constellations like collectors swapping rare coins. Yet, beneath his easy grin, I've noticed something unspoken in his eyes lately. A weight I can't name, tension I can't dismiss. And I've been rehearsing a confession I'm not sure I'll ever dare to say. This morning, the camp is hushed except for the distant call of a raven. Mist coils around the fir trunks, softening the forest into a watercolor dream. Alex is already up, sketching the dawn light on his notepad, oblivious to the turmoil in my mind. He left his thermos by the log where I slept last night, still hot, the coffee inside promising warmth. My pulse skips when I pick it up, because it feels intimate, as though he's marking territory in my space. A breeze flutters through the clearing, carrying leaves and possibility. I should be focusing on data sheets and biodiversity indexes, but all I can think about is what happens when the map we've always followed detours into unknown territory. When friendship teeters on the brink of something deeper. Today's hike is supposed to be routine, but destiny, I've learned, rarely keeps to schedule. And as I brace my backpack straps, ready to step into the forest's green cathedral, I know I'm not the same naive observer I was when I woke up. Change is coming, and this time, I'm the one leading the expedition. I first met Alex in freshman biology, of all places. I was fumbling with a pipette, trying not to flood the slide, when he reached over without a word and steadied my hand. "You're going to drown that specimen," he joked, eyes bright behind his glasses. I snorted, nearly dropping the pipette, and that was it, our partnership was sealed. From that awkward experiment bloomed an effortless friendship that felt less like a choice and more like coming home. Over the last 3 years, we've racked up enough memories to fill a dozen photo albums. There was the time we got hopelessly lost on a night hike, only to discover a hidden grove of bioluminescent fungi that looked like starlight at our feet. He swore we'd stumbled into Narnia. I swore I'd hug him if we ever found the trail again. We did, eventually. With mud on our boots and laughter in our lungs. There have been pizza-fueled cram sessions, the two of us side by side in the library until the sunrise glow seeped across the reference books. He always brings too much coffee, I always bring just enough snacks to keep us alive. We balance each other, even when we drive each other crazy. Our banter is second nature. This morning, as we packed gear, he teased me about my color-coded map pins. "Are you sure you're not a squirrel in a past life?" he asked, eyebrow arched. I nudged him with my elbow. Says the guy who left his hiking boots at home and has to borrow mine. He huffed in mock offense, but I caught his fingers brushing mine as I handed them over, an ordinary moment heavy with something unsaid. By mid-afternoon, the sky had turned an ominous gray. We paused at a fork in the trail, left toward the ridgeline, right into a denser thicket that promised hidden overlooks. I was studying the map when a rumble of thunder shook the canopy. Alex glanced up, then at me. "I vote ridge. Less chance of us getting soaked in a swamp." I tried to sound nonchalant, but my throat tightened. We were only halfway prepared for rain, thin jackets, half-full water bladders, and I was already regretting leaving my extra layers in the car. We set off, boots sloshing through slick leaves. In the narrower section, Vines curled through the air like eager hands. I reached up to push one aside and felt a sharp snap, my backpack strap tearing. My heart lurched. "Great," I muttered, dipping my shoulder to shift the load. Alex slipped behind me in a heartbeat. "Let me help," he said, tugging the torn strap to inspect it. His fingers brushed mine again, but this time lingered as if neither of us could draw back. I watched him frown at the damage, then look up with that familiar mischievous grin. "I know a trick to fix this," he said, fishing a length of paracord from his gear. As he nodded and laced the cord through the frayed fabric, I realized how natural it felt to be this close, our bodies angled toward each other, voices low enough that only the other could hear. Every brush of his hand repairing my pack sent a flutter through me that I couldn't quite name. The storm hit just as he finished, fat raindrops bursting through the leaves. We dove under a leaning pine, sharing the same small space. My jacket stuck to my back, and he draped his over my shoulders without a word. In the dim light, his face was soft, eyes intense. He offered me his water bottle, but his fingers trembled as he passed it. I swear I felt the electricity in that touch. The rain pounded overhead, and for a moment, the world narrowed to the two of us huddled against the bark. I realized then that every laugh, every shared silence, every unplanned adventure had led to this. My chest tightened with longing I could no longer ignore. And as he met my gaze, rain tracing lines down his cheeks, I knew the line between friendship and something more had already blurred, even if neither of us was ready to admit it. The rain didn't let up. By late afternoon, the forest floor had transformed into a carpet of slick leaves and muddy puddles. Our trail markers were all but washed away, and the sun was a distant rumor behind the thunderheads. We pressed on, but every step felt heavier, both from the weight of our packs and the growing dread in my chest. When lightning cracked overhead, splitting the sky into jagged shards, Alex looked at me with an urgency I hadn't seen before. "We need shelter," he said, voice low. We'd passed a small clearing a quarter-mile back. Enough space for one tent, but not both of our solo rigs. I swallowed, trying to ignore the tremor in my hands. Sharing a tent had always seemed like a boundary I wasn't sure I was ready to cross. In my head, that boundary was the line between friendship and something more, something unknown and terrifying and thrilling all at once. He glanced at the rest area nestled beneath a huge cedar, old, knotted roots curling out of the earth like the gnarled fingers of an ancient guardian. "Think we could fit a two-person tent there?" His tone was practical, but his eyes flicked over my face as if gauging my reaction. "Yeah," I managed, voice tight. My pulse pounded so loud I was sure he could hear it. I fumbled to dig the tent out from the bottom of my pack, and he knelt in the mud alongside me, hands brushing mine as he passed me poles and stakes. That touch, the way his fingers lingered, sent warmth blooming through my chest despite the cold rain. When we finally wrestled the tent upright, the interior looked pathetically small. 2 sleeping bags would fill it end to end, and we'd have to sit in a kind of kneeling crouch to spare ourselves being squashed against the nylon walls. Alex kicked mud off his boots before crawling in, then tugged the door flap shut behind me. Immediately, the temperature jumped, our shared body heat, the damp air trapped inside. I sat up against one side, tangled in my own sleeping bag, and Alex shifted to make space. Our shoulders bumped. I offered him a sheepish smile, but my heart was hammering. Here we were, side by side in darkness, inches apart. The tent fabric bulged with each gust of wind, and I was acutely aware of his breath, steady, warm, and so close. "I'm sorry, Sam," he whispered, his voice muffled by the tent. "I know this isn't ideal." Ideal? My mind screamed. This was exactly ideal, every nerve ending in my body alight with electricity. But my mouth felt full of cotton. I only managed, "No, it's fine." My own words sounded shaky, as if I'd borrowed them. His elbow brushed mine as he leaned back against the curved wall. I caught my breath. That brush was innocent, nothing more than shifting to get comfortable, but my skin ignited where we touched. I forced my gaze down at my boots, willing myself to think of something else. Soil samples, lichen taxonomy, literally anything but this burning closeness. The silence stretched. Outside, The rain pummeled the tent, and the wind rattled its seams. Inside, our uneven breathing was the only soundtrack. I could pinpoint the steady thump of Alex's heart under my palm if I dared to reach out. When I finally did, fingertips trembling, I expected him to pull away. Instead, he let me rest my hand on his chest, his palm covering mine. "Are you okay?" he asked, voice so soft it felt like a caress. I blinked up at him, half terrified that I'd read something into the moment he didn't intend. "Yeah," I whispered, though my heart answered, "No, I'm not. I'm anything but." Thunder rolled, and the tent sagged under the weight of rain. I saw his silhouette tense, then soften. His free hand found mine and intertwined our fingers. The contact shot through me like lightning, and I couldn't help but gasp. He pressed my hand tighter. He began, then paused as though his thoughts were trapped behind my pleading gaze. "I'm sorry," he said again. "I just didn't want you to be cold." His apology, so genuine and gentle, cracked something inside me. The words I'd rehearsed for months, confessions of longing, fear, love, spilled from my lips without warning. "Alex, I swallowed. I've been wanting more than friendship for a long time." The tent seemed to shrink around us, the walls pressing in with the weight of that admission. He froze and my breath caught. My confession sounded raw, too vulnerable, like an exposed nerve. Outside, a branch scraped against the tent, and his hand tightened around mine as if for reassurance. I closed my eyes, cheeks burning. When I dared to look again, his face was inches away, features softened by the dim glow of my headlamp reflector. He lifted his other hand to brush a lock of wet hair from my forehead, fingertips gentle. That simple gesture spoke volumes. No teasing, no laughter, just pure, intent care. "I'm not straight, Sam," he murmured, voice thick. I think I've been scared to tell you." My heart thundered at his words. For a moment, time held its breath. Then, so slowly I thought I might be dreaming, he leaned in and pressed his forehead to mine. The electric warmth of his skin against my temple erased all my fear. Our breaths mingled, and the tiny tent around us felt like the safest place in the world. I buried my face in his shoulder, arms winding around him as if to anchor myself. His arms encircled me in return, firm and protective. In that cramped, rain-battered tent, two hearts revealed themselves. Hesitation and longing gave way to an embrace that was equal parts relief and promise. Outside, the storm continued its furious symphony, but inside, everything fell silent, save for the steady beat of our joined hearts, and an unspoken vow that neither of us would look back. The damp walls of the tent trembled with each clap of thunder, but inside, our world had narrowed to a hushed bubble of shared breath and pulsing heartbeats. I couldn't remember how long we'd stayed pressed together, minutes? Hours? But every second seemed both suspended and searingly real. My forehead still leaned against Alex's, our hands entwined, and I could feel the rapid thrum of his pulse beneath my fingers. I didn't mean to catch you off guard," I whispered, voice fragile. The words had tumbled out so suddenly I'd barely had time to steady them. My cheeks burned, my throat felt raw. I had to say it. Alex's hand tightened around mine. Darkness hid his expression, but in the soft quiver of his voice, I heard the weight of surprise, relief, and something else, something tender. "Sam," he breathed, pressing a gentle kiss to the back of my hand. "I'm glad you said it." My chest stuttered. But what if this ruins everything? Panic lanced through me. What if you're just being polite because you're stuck in here with me? He lifted my chin, his thumb brushing the curve of my cheek. His eyes, wide and earnest, glimmered in the pale lamp glow. "I wouldn't lie about something like this," he said softly. He paused, as if collecting courage for his own confession. "I've been scared of what it would mean, how you might react." I swallowed so hard it felt like my heart lodged in my throat. "I've been scared too," I admitted, closing my eyes against the pulse of emotion. "Scared that you'd think I was crazy, that you'd stop talking to me." When I opened my eyes, tears blurred my vision. Alex brushed a thumb under my eye, wiping away a stray drop. His touch was so gentle it felt like a benediction. "Sam," he whispered, voice thick with feeling. "You're not crazy." He drew in a breath that shook. "I've been wrestling with this, figuring out how to even say it. Because you're my best friend, and I didn't want to lose you. But I can't pretend anymore either." My heart pounded so loudly I was sure he heard it. "You like me?" I dared. He hesitated, then exhaled, eyes shining. "Goodness, I like you more than I've ever liked anyone." My chest flooded with warmth. Everything else, the thunder, the cramped space, the mud outside, faded to insignificance. I leaned forward, closing the scant inches between us, and pressed my lips to his in a soft, questioning kiss. He froze for a heartbeat, then melted into it. His arms came up to cradle my face, fingers threading into the nape of my neck. The kiss deepened, charged with the weight of all the words we'd both been too afraid to speak. I tasted rain-spiked warmth on his lips, felt the tremor of his breath as he leaned into me, and for the first time, I believed in what was happening. When we finally broke apart, gasping, Alex rested his forehead against mine again. "I've wanted that for so long," he murmured. "I know," I whispered back, voice thick. "Me too." He smiled, a slow, radiant curve that banished every ounce of doubt. "I thought you were supposed to be the shy one," he teased gently, fingers brushing my hair from my damp forehead. I laughed, a short, ecstatic sound, and playfully swatted at his arm. "I'm shy," I said, voice trembling with joy, "but not when it matters." He pulled me into his arms, hugging me tight. I fit against him like I'd been carved to his shape, and in that embrace, I found a sense of rightness I'd never known. The rain outside softened to a gentle patter, and the tent walls ceased their furious dance. We sat back, still wrapped in each other's arms, foreheads touching, foreseeing nothing but possibility. His thumb traced circles on my back. "So," he said, voice low, laced with wonder, "what now?" I tilted my head, resting it on his shoulder. "Now we figure it out, together," I replied, heart soaring. He chuckled, warm and soft. "Together," he echoed, as if savoring the promise of that single word. I closed my eyes, breathing in the scent of pine and rain and him, thinking that there was nowhere else I'd rather be. The storm would pass, the forest would dry, and sometime tomorrow we'd emerge from this tent, mud-splattered and sunlit. But in this single, stolen moment, we existed beyond time. Two hearts laid bare, a confession made, and a first kiss that felt like coming home. And as we drifted into a quiet calm, hands still intertwined, I knew that this was only the beginning of our story. A chapter of fear and longing had closed, and before us lay a new page, bright with promise and the soft glow of something real at last. I woke before dawn, the pale light seeping through the nylon walls, painting the tent in soft gray. Alex was already awake beside me, his arm draped across my waist, fingers idly tracing shapes on my hip. For a moment, I lay perfectly still, savoring the steady rhythm of his breath. It felt absurdly intimate, considering that just hours ago we'd been terrified friends huddled in the dark. Now, his warmth was as natural as the earth beneath us. I gently shifted so he could see me. His eyes, dark pools flecked with curiosity, fluttered open, and he offered me a sleepy smile that made my heart lurch all over again. "Morning," he murmured, voice husky. "Morning," I whispered back, pressing a light kiss to his temple. The feel of his stubble against my lips sent a thrill through me. He chuckled, then winced. "Sorry," I said, pulling back. "Too early for kisses?" He shook his head, still smiling. "Never too early." And he scooted closer, nudging me until we were spooned together, my back against his chest. "I could get used to this," he said with a content sigh. "You and me both," I replied, resting my hands over his. The shift in our dynamic was undeniable, our easy camaraderie now laced with something deeper. A simple touch carried new weight, and even our casual glances were infused with unspoken affection. Outside, the storm had passed and a damp hush lay over the forest. Moss and fallen leaves glistened in the early light. We lingered in the tent, talking in hushed tones about everything and nothing. Favorite movies, ridiculous high school memories, plans for dinner once we got back. But between the jokes and chatter, we circled back to us. "I've been thinking," Alex said, his fingers tracing patterns on my arm. "About what you said last night. About the future." My breath caught. "Yeah." He sank back, propping himself on one elbow to look at me. "I don't want to rush anything. But I do want to figure it out together, like you said." He paused, vulnerability flickering across his face. "I'm not out to my family yet. And I know you have your own stuff." His voice trailed off. I squeezed his hand. "Hey," I said softly, tilting his chin up so our eyes met. "One step at a time. We'll go at whatever pace you need. I'm here." He leaned in and brushed his nose against mine. "Promise. Promise." I gave him a crooked grin that made him laugh. The sound was warm, like sunlight filtering through leaves. We spent the next hour packing our gear, but our movements were slow, punctuated by lingering touches, our hands brushing as we folded the tent, shared glances that stretched into small smiles. Neither of us minded the extra time. We were rediscovering each other in this new light, mapping the contours of our relationship with each gentle gesture. Before we zipped up the tent for good, Alex reached into his pocket and pulled out a small smooth stone, a keepsake from yesterday's stream. He handed it to me, thumb rubbing its cool surface. "For you to remember that sometimes getting lost leads you exactly where you need to be." My throat tightened. "It's perfect," I said. I tucked it into my pocket, close to my heart. As we stepped back onto the trail, the forest stretched out before us in muted greens and browns, the air crisp with renewal. Side by side, we walked in companionable silence, boots crunching on the damp earth. Every now and then, our shoulders brushed, and we'd exchange a shy smile. The path ahead was uncertain, there were real challenges to face, families to tell, fears to confront, the everyday logistics of starting something so new. But none of that felt insurmountable when I glanced at Alex and saw the same determination in his eyes that I felt in my own. We paused at a sun-dappled clearing, and he took my hand, weaving our fingers together. "Whatever comes," he said, voice steady, "we'll face it together." I squeezed back, savoring the warmth of his grip. "Together," I echoed. And in that moment, as sunlight filtered through the treetops and danced across our entwined hands, I felt an unshakable certainty that this was more than just an emotional high. It was the beginning of something enduring. Something worth every risk, every confession, every uncertain step into the unknown. Because when it was him beside me, I knew I had finally found my way home. The forest trail unfurled before us like a ribbon of possibility, sunlight dappled through the leaves as we made our way back to the car. My hand found Alex's without a word, our fingers lacing together in an easy, familiar rhythm. The simple act felt monumental, a promise spelled out in skin against skin. We emerged from the wooded path onto the gravel parking lot, our boots caked with mud and our packs lighter in spirit. I glanced at Alex, who was sweeping a stray branch from the roof of my car. He caught my eye and flashed that grin I'd come to know as the map to my heart. "Race you to the driver's seat?" he challenged, voice playful. I laughed and took off in a sprint, the cool air whipping my flannel shirt against my back. He was on my heels, fast, determined, but I reached the car first and threw the door open triumphantly. Alex skidded to a stop, panting and mock-offended. "Cheap move," he accused, leaning against the frame. "All's fair in love and ecology," I teased, offering him a hand up into the passenger seat. As he climbed in, our knees brushed, and he paused, hand resting over mine on the center console. There was a quiet gravity in that touch, a mutual understanding that this moment, mud, laughter, and all, was a milestone. Once we were buckled in, I turned the key, and the engine roared to life. Alex pressed the button to roll down his window, letting in a breeze that carried the scent of pine and late-morning freshness. "Hey," he said, sounding more serious, "thank you for today. For everything." I glanced at him, heart swelling. "Thank you," I replied. "For saving me, literally and figuratively." I reached across the console and squeezed his hand. He leaned over and pressed a soft kiss to my knuckles. The road stretched ahead, winding out of the mountains and toward whatever came next. We drove in comfortable silence for a few miles, the world outside bright and expansive. Then Alex cleared his throat. "So, our first official date?" I grinned, heart fluttering. I was thinking something low-key. Maybe that little cafe we always talked about trying? And then a movie? He nodded, eyes shining. Perfect. We talked through playlists and weekend plans, but every suggestion circled back to one question. How do we build this new chapter? With honesty, patience, and open hearts, I thought. With the same sense of adventure that got us through bioluminescent groves and rainstorms. A few miles later, as the mountain gave way to rolling hills, Alex reached into the pocket of his jacket and pulled out the smooth stone he'd given me. He held it out, thumb caressing its surface. "I want you to have this back," he said, "so I can keep the next keepsake." My eyes softened. Deal. I took it, feeling the cool weight of promise in my palm. We drove on, two silhouettes framed by the windshield, hands still intertwined on the console. Ahead lay uncertainty, college finals, family conversations, the delicate choreography of early relationship steps. But beneath it all was a quiet confidence. Together, we could navigate whatever twists the trail might take. As we crested a hill and the valley spilled into view, Alex brushed a loose curl from my forehead and whispered, "This is just the beginning, right?" I leaned into him, resting my head against his shoulder. "The very beginning," I agreed, voice soft but sure. He smiled, and for a heartbeat, the world stilled in the golden light of promise. Then he started a song on the radio, and we sang along, off-key, laughter filling the car, two hearts finally in sync, ready for the miles ahead.